We're talking about DUIs or criminal laws tonight, and I think there's some new things that we're going to find out, some new offenses that we're going to talk about
There's
tonight.
some new criminal stuff
that individuals need to know about. So if you have a question, give us a call, 850-392-1544, or you can always email us at lawcall@wmbb.com. James, tell me about this new, is it a felony or a misdemeanor that we were just talking about?
One of the new laws that they put in is a refusal, a first-time refusal, to take a breath test.
So you get pulled over for an alleged DUI, and they ask you to do a breath test, right?
Correct.
And the old adage that you've heard over the years, the old wisdom from your jailhouse lawyers was never blow, never blow, never blow. So when you refuse, you used to just get your license suspended by the administrative department, I guess it was.
Correct.
But now it's something different.
Now you face an additional criminal charge, because at the time that you're being asked to take that breath test, you are under arrest for DUI. Okay. So you are going to face a subsequent charge of refusal, where before that was just an administrative action. It was criminal if you had refused to take a breath test previously. Okay. So if you'd been arrested, unfortunately, before for DUI.
All right, hold on. Let's break this down, because for, I don't know, let's just say since cars have been invented and DUIs have been a law, so the last 40 years, I guess, 45, 50 years maybe. And then you have your breathalyzer test and you just refuse. So you're saying now that if you refuse to take the test after the officer has put you in, placed you in custody and has told you to take the test, just by refusing to do what he says, that's now a new misdemeanor as well?
That's correct, where before it was not.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate. So is that a violation of your right against self-incrimination?
Well, that hasn't been tested at this point.
Because we have a right, not to testify against ourselves. I mean, little people, sometimes that's why people get themselves in trouble when they want to be heard. Let me just talk myself out of this, and then all of a sudden you hear somebody in the background, just shut your mouth, be quiet, right?
Less is more.
Less is, right. And so when did this law take place? January 1? Or?
No, October 1st of 25.
Have you seen any cases? Have you defended any cases, I guess?
Yeah, I've got some pending ones right now.
Okay.
This is a new avenue that the criminal defense attorneys are exploring at this point.
Okay, wow. So I guess that's going to have to be tested in the courts, and probably from the county court level first off, because those are county court offenses. I mean, those are misdemeanors, right? Is it a first degree, second degree, or third degree misdemeanor?
First degree.
So you get a first degree misdemeanor for failure to comply with an officer's request to take a breathalyzer test. Okay, then you get charged with DUI, so you got 2 misdemeanors, right?
Correct.
And the procedural aspect of appealing a county court decision is to the circuit court, right?
Correct.
So a circuit court will have to decide this in some part of the state, whoever appeals it first, and then it goes to the appellate level, or when does it get to the Supreme Court?
Something like that would be pretty rare, because it does have to work its way, like you said, from county to circuit to the first DCA here, which there's multiple districts courts of appeals throughout the state of Florida. But for this area, it would go to the first DCA, which is actually in Tallahassee.
Okay.
Just so people understand, when there's different district courts of appeal, that doesn't automatically, everybody thinks Tallahassee's the capital, so that's where everything goes. No, there's different district courts of appeals in different areas of the state. Then from there, depending on how a ruling was, then you could also try to petition it to the Florida Supreme Court.
Okay.
So, when something makes it, at a very low level, all the way to being decided at a U.S. Supreme Court level, it's really taken quite a bit to get there.
All right, so we'll pivot from this in just a moment, but Bay County is legendary, and a lot of people may not know this, that Bay County was legendary for the case for why there are public defenders in the whole country.
Correct.
And it started in Panama City, Florida, in Bay County, Florida, and it's a famous legacy case that's out there that basically says if the state has a right to an attorney, the person that has been accused of a crime has the right to the same type of proper representation. Basically, that's dumbing it down, right?
Right. Gideon v. Wainwright.
Right. So, you could make history. I mean, you could, James Dogle might be the next legacy case, attorney that challenges this, and I don't know if it can be upheld or not. I mean, it seems like it would be a violation of your First Amendment, I mean, your right against self-incrimination.
Well, you know, we already had a little bit of the issue because if you had refused once before, you could be charged criminally. So I don't know how much, you know, the legs that you're going to be able to get to on some of that,
Right.
because some of it deals with some of the implied consent law that's
Okay.
out there. You know, because one of the issues you will see in some of these cases when you do take the breath test, even if you blew zeros, a lot of times the next thing they're going to ask you to do is to take a urine. And that's part of the requirement too on the implied consent.
So implied consent, is that something that you agree to when you get your driver's license?
Correct.
Okay, so explain that to our viewers.
So basically, in the kind of fine print of getting a driver's license is the implied consent law, where basically you are agreeing at that time in order to, if you've been asked to submit to a breath or urine test, then you would agree to that, or you faced administrative type suspension on your driver's license.
Just like any contract, you better read that fine print, right?
Well, it's, you know, it's getting tougher and tougher. There's, you know, I heard one of the anchors earlier sit there and talk about another new law that went in effect, the super speeder. You know, that was another new criminal law that
Okay,
went in.
educate me on that one.
Previously, you know, in Florida, you only, if you were speeding, if you were doing 120 miles an hour, you were going to get a hefty ticket.
Right.
Okay. Now you can be criminally charged for going over 100 miles an hour, or if you're going over 50 miles an hour over the posted speed limit.
Wow.
Which is something new. You know?
You tell your mama to slow down?
I need to remind her of that.
Janet, slow down. Now, you know, we're having a not a comical conversation here, you know, just laughing at some of the nuances of these laws. But I mean, these are serious offenses, and these are serious issues that individuals need to know about. First off, I mean, I'm not sure, unless it's a medical emergency, that you would need to be traveling on a highway at that rate of speed. But you know, if you are at a point where you think you've had too much to drink and you're driving, well, let me say it differently. If you're drinking, don't drive at all.
Yeah.
You know,
Certainly have a plan.
Get a plan. Have an Uber. Have somebody to drive you, whatever it may be. But you know, for the misinformed and the uninformed and the ignorance of just possessing a driver's license, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. And now there's even more responsibility that comes with that, because if you think that you're going to circumvent the system and, you know, listen to the jailhouse lawyers, hey man, don't ever blow, well, now you're going to have even more problems than somebody that...
Yeah, you just need to be aware of what the consequences are
Right.
now. Be up to date. Then you can make your own informed
Because
decision.
I mean, these are serious crimes. I mean, they really are. I mean,
It's a public safety concern.
They can have somebody, you know, just if they harm themselves, harm others, destroy lives. These are very, very serious. So I'm not trying to downplay the DUI segment. I'm just, you know, you do have procedural rights that you have to go through, and we learned those in constitutional law in law school. And but you know, there may or may not be challenges to these new laws, but nonetheless, they are serious offenses.
Just like you said, I mean, when you have a DUI that involves serious bodily injury,
Yeah.
that automatically becomes a felony charge.
Right.
And then, of course, DUI manslaughter, where there's a death.
Right.
You know, and so there's mandatory jail time.
Nothing comes good out of drinking and driving.
No.
Right. Let's not. Well, we can stay on that for just a few more minutes before we take our first break. But you know, not only do you have the DUI criminal component of it, James, you're a very esteemed attorney. I mean, you know, when you have to make a living also. DUIs aren't cheap either.
No.
And for someone to get your services with someone with 25 years of experience in criminal law, DUI defenses are pretty hefty to hire a private attorney.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you're on the low end, you're probably talking, you know, $5,000, and
Right.
then working it your way up from there. So, you know, depending on different people, like anything else, you
Right.
get different contractors that charge different types of money for things. So, you know, you can certainly, it's not unreasonable for an attorney to be charged on a simple DUI $7,500.
And that's not even including the court costs, right?
Correct.
Right.
That doesn't include the court costs. That doesn't include the classes you have to take. That doesn't include the rise in insurance. So
Yeah.
if you're convicted of DUI, okay, that's one of the big things, is that you face carrying SR22 insurance for up to 2 years, which is high-risk insurance.
Yeah.
You're looking probably triple of what your
Premium,
normal
right.
insurance.
And lower and basically basic limits. I
Yes.
mean, you're just trying to get enough insurance. I mean, we've seen those policies out there.
Enough to be legally on the road.
Right. So typically, how much are case costs on a typical, just a run-of-the-mill DUI?
I mean, you're probably, well, if you're with an attorney, with the costs and everything, I would tell somebody you're looking at $10,000.
Okay. And you have that on your record, and you have to comply with insurance regulations now.
And here's another one that people don't realize too, Chris, is I've had some clients before that were traveling out of the country, okay? I had a client that was going for a bear hunt, of all things, up in Canada. And now granted, we had gotten his case reduced down to a reckless, but he couldn't enter into Canada with a DUI charge, okay?
Oh, wow.
On just a simple misdemeanor DUI.
Yeah.
Now he could with the reckless, but the DUI, he was sitting at the border waiting till we got the documentation to him.
Wow. Things you don't think about, right?
No, it's